All right, so we've talked about you being a world traveler and being in different locations, favorite cities and whatnot. I was thinking about food in all of these different locations. Can you talk about your experience with food, growing up in Pittsburgh and then moving all over the world? Who has your favorite food?
Growing up in Pittsburgh, when you're from the East, and especially like Pittsburgh, where mostly Germans populated early, it's meat and potatoes. So almost every meal, there's some meat and there's some potatoes. You might have greens, you might have cheese and macaroni, sweet potatoes, different vegetables. You're going to have meat and potatoes. So when you have soup, it's meat and potatoes. There ain't no such thing as tomato soup. You have meat and potatoes. So that's funny how that was part of my life. And then when I went in the military, I ended up in a meat and potatoes country. And so the food in Germany and in Holland was basically just like I grew up, meat and potatoes. Now you go to England, meat and potatoes is kind of blah. I mean, nothing tastes that great except fish and chips. But the meat and potatoes was just kind of the staple portion of what you were as a kid. And so every kid ate that way. So sometimes you didn't have a whole lot of money to buy meat and potatoes, but somehow, you know, they might kill a rabbit. Somebody might kill a deer and give you some venison, but you always had meat. During the time that I grew up, we were poor, and so you would go to, and I forgot what they called it, but you would get free food from the state, but they never gave you any meat. You would get cheese, you know, powdered milk, powdered eggs, things like that. What's really funny is Velveeta cheese, which is really popular now and very expensive, was the cheese that they had when they gave it to you free from the state. And so people ate that cheese all the time. And I ate a lot of grilled cheese sandwiches. I ate a lot of cheese. But during that time, you know, no one considered that as a delicacy or an expensive meal. But now it's expensive. But the cheese was good. I can remember that. But I never ate the powdered eggs, powdered milk. I didn't drink that. It was nasty. But some people liked it, and it was free. So when I moved overseas, my first assignments were in Asia. So the meat and potatoes in Asia is totally different from meat and potatoes in the United States. And basically, when I was there, it was after the war, and there wasn't a whole lot of meat to begin with. So the Japanese, as an example, ate very, very, very little meat. They ate mostly vegetables. And my first assignment over there was to Korea, and then I went to Japan. But when I went to Korea, it was the same thing. There really wasn't any meat. It's mostly vegetables. So the little meat that they had was chicken. And of course, everybody knows that chicken is everywhere and chicken is plentiful. So basically the meals were chicken, you know, and French fries. So you still have the potatoes. So no matter what, the potato never goes away. Even in Japan, the potato was a Japanese potato, or it was a yam, or it was a sweet potato. But the potatoes never go away. Even as vegetables, you know, they were there. They're starchy foods. So when I went to Korea, I just ate a lot of chicken. I can remember that because you would get it in a bag, and I would just put ketchup in there and some salt and shake it up. And that's how I would eat it, with the French fries. And that was kind of like almost my dinner every night. Now, the military had meat in the chow halls. And I was working in the fire department and as air rescue. So we would have to stay together as a crew. So I would work one day off, one day on. So you work 24 hours, then you're off 24 hours. Come back 24 hours, then you're on 24 hours. So, and then you get 3 days off at the end of the week, and it was called the Kelly Day. So the day that you were supposed to be working, you would get off that day, and so you'd end up with 3 days off. So that's when I would eat the chicken. So while I was on duty, I would eat whatever they had at the chow hall. So, you know, it wasn't an in-country meal, and I didn't really eat downtown a lot because during those days, it wasn't very clean. And so remember, this is after the war, and Koreans are very poor. So when I went to Japan, it was just totally different because the United States had went in and helped them and built up the country and that sort of thing. So they would have noodles and, you know, slices of beef, but I wasn't into that. So I ate chicken. There was no McDonald's, there was no Burger King, there was no fast food places. You either ate the local food or you ate on base. So that was about it. So I guess during that time I ate a whole lot of chicken.
And that's the 60s?
Like I was cooking. Huh?
That's the 60s?
Yeah, I went in the military in 1965. I was in Las Vegas for 18 months. Then they sent me to North Carolina. I was there for 10 months. And then I got sent to Korea. Never wanted to go, but I had to go. And then I was in Korea for 2 years. After Korea, I went to Arizona, and then I went back to Asia again. But when I went to Europe, my first time was 1977, and I went to Italy. And as I told you before, out of all the countries, that was my favorite country, probably because they had my favorite food. But it wasn't like Germany, where they have schnitzels, which is, you know, big piece of meat. That's kind of what they eat. Germans, that's what they eat. Schnitzel and French fries, or schnitzel and baked potato. But in Italy, it's more pasta. So the pasta might have some meat in it, but not like meat and potatoes. It was like a little bit of meat and some pasta. But it was different for me. And as I was growing up, like I told you, I had a newspaper route, and these people would take care of me. They would always give me food to eat. Well, the Italian people, who were old and they couldn't even speak English, but we always talked to each other, but we couldn't understand, but we did understand. They would give me Italian food all the time. So when I went to Italy, I wasn't surprised. I mean, I knew what the Italian food tastes like. So even though it didn't have a whole lot of meat, you know, I just liked the pasta. And of course the pizza. And that's probably my favorite food in the world, is pizza. So there, you would never believe how they made it, but they try to imitate that in the United States, but it's not the same when they put it in the brick ovens. In Italy, it just tastes better. But I think one of the reasons is because all their food is just fresh. Like their meat, prosciutto, which is ham, I would get that, and pepperoni. And it's fresh. They may have just killed the pig, brought in the ham. And the dough is made that same day, handmade. So when they put that in the oven, it's totally different from what you get in the United States, where they have packaged meat and packaged dough, and it's just not the same. But the taste in Italy was just totally different from all other foods, and I like Italian food. In fact, I thought I was part Italian for a long time. I didn't know what I was, but I thought I was Italian because I love the food so much. But remember, I told you my second city was between Spain and Holland. When I went to Holland, they eat meat and potatoes too, but their meat and potatoes like Germany, and but they don't have schnitzel. But they have a lot of different Dutch food, which I grew up with, and so I had a taste for all of that. So in Holland, the food was almost like being home when I was growing up. So yeah, it's back to Italy, and they didn't have all the meat and potatoes I wanted, but the pasta was so good. There's so many different kinds of pasta, and sausages. That was really what I liked a lot. I'm not a pig lover, but the sausages were really good. So they would have a lot of sausage and not necessarily beef.